for third, and so on, all the way down to 1 point for 15th. So it's in final order of the position. Points for second, 19 points for third, and so on, all the way down to 1 point for 15th position. Then the superheats take place, and the finishing order of the superheats, as in the top 15 drivers on the starting grid for the final, will also take championship points. 25 for the win, 22 for second, 19 for third, and so on, all the way down to 1 point for 15th. So it's double championship point scores over the course of these days. You score points from the qualifying heats, 25 points on the championship board then for Oleksandr Bondarev for taking the pole position for Superheat A. And then whoever gets pole position for the final will also score 25 points in the European Series Championship. So Oleksandr Bondarev in front of Dries van Langendonk, Zach Drummond and Jack Eiliff, Tiziano Monza and Scott Lindblom from Kian Fardin and Guy Albag, Sanne Menard and Jindra Peschel from Tobias Czesenyi and Kit Belowski, Lev Krutelov and Kimi Tani from Henry Domain and David Kozma, Oliver Kinmark and Sebastian Letimaki from Matt Corby and Alex Chartier, Al Paxoy and Noah Montero from Augustus Toniolo and Vivek Kanthan, Murilo Rocca, Jose Aguma, Ludovico Busso, Luna Flusha, Max Rafalik, Morgan Knudsen, Louis Cochet, Tobias Pascoe, Jan Stenchel, Adam Sidor, Luca Horton and Louis Castellini. So it's going to be a very tricky Superheat A. But as we mentioned in the Drivers' Championship at this point, Oleksandr Bondarev has taken 25 points from the qualifying heats yesterday, and that means that in the European Championship at this point, he is just 1 point behind Tibor Ramekers in the overall point standings. That's exciting coming into Sunday morning.
It definitely is, isn't it? And of course, the next round for them would be Rodby in Denmark as well. That's in sort of mid-June. So it certainly makes it exciting going into that. But again, more points are going to be had today. So that is what it currently stands at. But going into the rest of the day, we're going to find out if that's going to change or not. But like you say, the top six out there, relatively decent days yesterday. I'm more surprised, actually, with the drivers on the third row of the grid. Scott Lindblom and Tiziano Monza themselves qualified 10th and 11th yesterday, and they find themselves already up in this sort of top six area, both getting away with some good results. Monza, best result yesterday was a P2. So again, Monza having a fabulous day despite that bad qualifying. You know, comes into this one very, very strong. So curious to see what's going to happen in this one as the drivers get themselves ready, lined up for their formation. Hopefully we go green flag, first time of asking, as they make their way down the hill now in towards the tram lines. Yellow flags wave to slow the pack down. Gonzalo Plata there at the front to make sure it all goes well into the tram lines. False start. They will go round again. I think it was a little bit eager to get away from the front.
Just the pressure of the enormity of the moment is obviously getting to a couple of the drivers there in the mix. And don't forget that obviously we have two superheats for junior and senior. 72 drivers remain in the competition at this point, but at the end of these two superheats for each class, there will be just 36 left. So this is a proper cull of 50% of the competition this morning. It's going to be very tricky. And of course, the way we do that is not the first 18 drivers across the finish line in each superheat. It is added to the qualification intermediate classification from yesterday. So you obviously have more points in the qualifying heats classification to take from a superheat. It's 50 for a win in the qualifying heats. It's 75 in the superheat. So that will be added to the tally from yesterday, and that will set the final grid. And of course, the top 15 drivers on the starting grid for the final also take championship points to the European Championship. If that all made sense, by the way, I probably wasn't telling it right, but it made sense in my head, and hopefully it will make sense when all the mathematics of the point standings do come out in the wash. So, out of the final turn come Bondarev and Van Langendonk, and Bondarev has gone for the inside line for turn 1 rather than the inside for turn 2, because obviously he gets to choose that in the heats. Here they come again, and away we go. Oleksandr Bondarev gets a perfect start from Dries van Langendonk. No issues at all as they fly through turn 1, and Van Langendonk is actually having to go defensive from Drummond as they work their way up the hill. Good start from Tiziano Monza, I think, as there's a couple of drivers running wide at the top end. This is the busiest race we've had so far this weekend. Certainly the first race to have a full contingency of 36 drivers, and as they work their way to the hairpin, it's Bondarev, Van Langendonk, Drummond, and Monza battling away with Jack Eiliff. Eiliff trying to get his way back through in a 4th position. It hasn't happened yet, and there's problems. Oh dear, 2 or 3 cars have come off the road there. It's Henry Domain, Murilo Rocca and Kosai Oguma, the Japanese driver.
All involved, and it looked like the Ricky Flynn driver of Kosai Oguma out of his car and walking back to the marshal boats. Hopefully he's okay, because that looked like quite a hefty whack they had there.
Yeah, Toniolo and Vivek Kanthan also had to take avoiding action. Domain has managed to get the card started again, so he's going, and so too has Kosei Aguma. So Kosei Aguma has managed to get started, but Murillo Rocca in the energy course is out on the spot. So it's Bondarev, Van Langendonk, Drummond, Monza, Eilif, Fardin, Lindblom, Albag, Hanna, and Peschel.
Nice little start
and that's
there.
Drummond into second.
Drummond, nice little move there down the inside. Van Langendonk caught sleeping there into the first of the hairpins. Down the hill they go into the second and the first of the S's. And again, can't retaliate there. So Van Langendonk down into third place now. And keep an eye on Tiziano Monza as it's changing in the background as Kian Fardin gets past Eilif. So Fardin now up one position here. He's into the top 5 now, and Fardin was very good yesterday, making good moves. Lindblom still there as well. His best result yesterday, Scott Lindblom's, was a third-place finish after he qualified 11th, so he's looking very strong so far this weekend as well, but he's there in P7 at the moment under immense pressure from Guy Albag. Remember, the Forza drivers are very quick this weekend. The kart's been set up perfectly as they come back across the line. No major changes then apart from Drummond getting put into second place, as well as Fardin further back as well. Kibalowski's moved up into the top 10 after gaining 2 positions on that one. And I think a disaster for Lev Krutelov in the energy course. He's dropped down 7 positions on that last lap as Maximilian Rafalik has gained 10. The same with Adam Sador, who's also gained 11 positions in this race. Good running from them so far.
So now we're going to see if Bondarev can stretch this advantage or if Zach Drummond is going to eat away at the gap. And certainly for the moment, Van Langendonk has got problems of his own to deal with. Tiziano Monza and Kian Fardin are giving chase. Jack Eilif in P6. Here's Kibalowski. He's having a bit of a run here with Salim Hanna and Jindra Peschel, who is the local favourite. That's certainly a very tricky battle for them as they continue to scrap away amongst themselves. So a really exciting run as they continue to battle away. Here is the run from Tiziano Monza, the young Singaporean, in front of Kian Fardin from Switzerland. Jack Eilif from the United States and Scott Lindblom from Sweden. A truly international competition, this. I know it's the European Championships, but it's only by location. It's certainly not by participation. Everybody from all 4 corners of the globe make their way to battle. And up the inside, there's Fardin getting his run on Tiziano Monza. Up into 4th position then comes the Swiss driver as the Kart Republic makes its way past the Paralymp.
Once again, Fardin making good moves here. That kart looking like it's on rails out there for the time being. He's now got Van Langendonk next on the pecking order if he can try and get that move done. So again, there is Lindblom just behind. Eilif there as well. So it's getting very, very close for comfort here as all the drivers just trying to find their piece of tarmac to themselves. Back across the start-finish straight. We are on to lap number 4 now. Or 4 laps completed, onto lap 5, I should say. Bondarev still leads 7/10 per second. That gap not going up as fast as I think he'd like, looking at the sector times. Consistently faster in all 3 than Drummond, so Drummond's only a fraction off from what Bondarev is doing out there, so keep an eye, that may change investigation flag for Henry Domain in the 271. So Domain being looked at the time being, and there is a Koski that's off the track, and it's the 217 of Sebastian Letamaki in 29th place, the Finnish driver. Unfortunately, is trying to get his kart restarted. There's karts going around in the background. He's got the downhill momentum and almost collides with a Sodi kart there, just coming through shot. I think that possibly was Louis Cochet. No, actually, that was Henry Domain.
Yes, it was. Domain, of course, involved in the first lap incident and dropped to the back of the field. Bondarev, Drummond, Van Langendonk, Fardin, Eilif, Monza and Lindblom. Hanna has been battling away with David Kozma. Now let's have a replay of what happened at the start. We can see where the 2 or 3 drivers ended up coming across. But there it is. Oh, goodness me. Murillo Rocca going airborne over the shoulder of Henry Domain and basically resting on his temple nearly. But fortunately, it was at relatively slow speed, so that'll be a bruise rather than a big problem.
Yeah, so hopefully he's feeling okay. Well, I mean, he's still out there, he's still racing, so seems to be all good. Drummond now with the fastest lap of the race. That gap is just squeaking its way down. 7/10 of a second. We've still got more than half race distance to go. Remember, these races, 13 laps, the longest races so far for the juniors. They're racing later on today. Will go up to 21 laps in total for their final. So that's a very long race. But 13 laps is the longest they've had so far this weekend, as we saw Fardin on that charge for Dries Van Langendonk for P3. Back here at the front, Bondarev now that gap down to 0.6 of a second, and keep an eye on Drummond as he's now gone a little bit faster here, there and everywhere.
So Bondarev has got 0.6 of a second still on Drummond. You're watching him out on screen now, the young man from Ukraine. as Kian Fardin puts pressure on Dries van Langendonk. Third position for the Belgian, looking very tidy actually in the Forza Racing Expert. But Kian Fardin definitely has good pace. I wonder if he's used this opportunity to save those fresh tyres. They only get a set and a half. Oh, and a spin! It's one of the Paralins that's gone around there. I think that's Vivek Kanthan, the American, has unfortunately been pitched around into a spin there. So Vivek Kanthan, unfortunately, is out of the superheat. And that's very unfortunate indeed for the American, who did such a strong job in Valencia, don't forget. So he's just not had the luck this time. Oh, bitter disappointment for poor Vivek Kanthan.
Again, hate to see it, but unfortunately, that is the way racing goes as we cut back now to Fardin and Van Langendonk for the battle of P3. And again, Fardin looking very, very quick here. Here's a replay of how it happened then to Vivek Kanthan down the inside. And
that was sloppy, wasn't it?
Now, who did he collect into the side of there? It looked like a Sodi.
I think he did go wheel to wheel with one of the Sodis. Sebastian Lettemaki is under investigation for his earlier incident. And I have a feeling there could be another investigation coming a little bit later on for that one. It was just two carts going for the same bit of racetrack, essentially. I wouldn't really call that one driver at fault over another. But when you're trying to gain places, you're trying to get yourself into the final, you've got to take those chances. Sometimes they work, sometimes they don't.
Update then for the battle for third. Fardin's actually managed to get the move done off camera. Dries van Langendonk down into fourth place and is now under pressure from the American of Jack Eiliff as they go up the hill now in towards turn number 2. This top hairpin where we saw the incident at the start of the race, the pinch point of the circuit basically, where everyone tries to squeeze their way through. Drummond again, another fastest lap of the race, 55.879. The gap's gone down even more, half a second now for the race lead. Looking out the commentary box window, there is only about 5 kart lengths between the two of them. Very, very close and exciting as we go into the latter stages of this race. We are on lap 9, 8 completed of 13 as the race goes on. And you can see there, Van Langendonk is holding his ground here to Eiliff. Tiziana Monza still there from Scott Lindblom. Bolowski's there in 9th place from Jendrik Peschel, who's in the top 10. Kimitani holding on to P11 as well from David Cosmo in P12. So again, big moves all the way throughout. Biggest mover so far again, Maximilian Rafalix, 15 positions gained. He's up to P14.
He's doing a fantastic job on those fresh tyres. Now, this is what happened with
it's Fardin's move.
Fardin.
There
big dive. Look at that. It came from a long way back.
Yeah, well timed though. And that was him making the moves earlier on in the day. Later, he would then go for the move on Dries van Langendonk, and that was the move there on your screen, down the inside. Very brave. Another angle of it here. And yeah, just had that inside line. Worked out well.
So Kian Fardin up to third position then. This is a bit of a headache for Dries van Langendonk, though, because that's going to drop him to 292 on the intermediate classification. Just one ahead of Zach Drummond. So he could really do with Kian Fardin actually catching and passing the Scotsman now as well to try and exacerbate some of the damage done there. But look, Drummond is actually reeling in Bondarev. This isn't over yet for the win in the superheat. Drummond still thinks he's got a chance here to bring the Paralin onto the top spot. Now, if Bondarev were to lose the lead, he wouldn't lose pole position. Based on what he did yesterday and Friday, Louis Cochet's got a technical flag. So that's problems for the Frenchman then. Louis Cochet, I'm afraid, is out of this one. There's a technical flag. By the time you come into the pits, you're not really going to get the chance to push start that again easily. So Louis Cochet, I'm afraid, is going to be out of this one. That's very unfortunate indeed. But Drummond, fastest lap of the race, 53.8. He really doesn't think he's got a chance here against Bondarev. And he's got 2 extra laps, in order to do it.
Yes, so as he goes through, the gap did dip down to about 0.3 of a second. It's now gone back up as 2 cars have gone off at the exit of the compression corner, and 2 of them in the barriers.
It's
and it looks
Zenyi. It's Zenyi and Busso.
Yeah.
Zenyi and Busso, they were trying. They basically went wheel to wheel with each other, and neither would give way. And that's what happens. You ended up tagging each other. They went into the barriers at full chat. Fortunately, they're both okay, but I don't think you're going to push start that one, Ludo. Sorry.
No.
Game over for Tobias Zenyi as well. And Ludo is not happy with Tobias Zenyi, but then if 2 drivers are going to go for the same bit of racetrack and neither driver's going to bail out, what did you think was going to happen?
Well, yeah, that's exactly the point. So, you know, you've got to be so careful, and we always say it down that corner. It's so fast, it's so tight. And drivers, we knew it was going to end at one point with drivers going and collecting each other. And unfortunately, it had to happen in the superheat.
I mean, to be fair, I'm surprised it hasn't happened before this weekend, to be honest, because 2 drivers there going flat on the throttle through that downhill compression, hoping that one of them's going to yield. Neither yielded, so that's why both of them went off the road. Into the final lap. Bondarev in front of Drummond to the tune of 0.3 of a second. It's certainly enough for the moment, isn't it? And Bondarev is just keeping it nice and tidy, not pushing too hard.
No, exactly. He's holding on to that spot quite nicely. As Drummond, though, is going to try his level best here to get past, and it's the closest he's been all race. Not close enough to go for the move into the first hairpin. Bondarev checking over the shoulder there, and is, I think, holding a little bit of a tighter line. This will benefit Drummond to close in just that little bit more as they go down compression. The yellow flags have cleared, so they've got a clean run here as they go for the overtakes, but no overtakes this time around. Drummond has seriously reeled in Bondarev now as the timer goes down to 0.2 of a second. He's going into this final section. It's tough to overtake here in any conditions, let alone the dry conditions, as it's nearly flat out for these drivers as they negotiate these corners. But out of the final corner, Bondarev will hold on to it, and it will be a holding on to a perfect weekend so far.
Bondarev was fastest in his time qualifying group. He has taken all 5 heat wins, and now he takes the superheat win. This is an amazing story developing here for Oleksandr Bondarev, and that means he will score 25 more championship points going into the final. Oleksandr Bondarev is going to take the lead of the Drivers' Championship before the final even begins. What a fabulous situation this is for the young man from Ukraine. What a comeback. Last year, he was in agony on the sidelines at Zuera. His season and potentially his career were in tatters. But nobody can stop Oleksandr Bondarev. He is the most determined, ferocious, audacious young athlete you could ever wish to meet. A little thing like an open leg fracture isn't going to stop him. If anything, it's going to fire him up even more. And Bondi the Phoenix will now start pole position for the final later today at the Steel Ring. What a story. What an amazing comeback. So Oleksandr Bondarev will be in the winner's position of Superheat A. Zach Drummond in second place. A brilliant charge from Kian Fardin to third position. Dries van Langendonk in front of Jack Eilif and Tiziano Monza. Scott Lindblom in the top 10 along with Guy Albag, Kit Belowski and David Kozma. Jindra Peschel in 11th place from Kimi Tani. Salim Hanna in 13th position from Max Rafalik and Oliver Kinmark. 16th place for Lev Krutelov in front of Matt Corby. Noah Montero and Alex Chartier. Luna Flusha in 20th, the young Mercedes F1 junior. Alpak Soy in 21st from Luca Horton, who did a great job in that one. Morgan Knudsen in front of Louis Castellini. Augustus Toniolo, Adam Shidor, Jan Stenschel, Tobias Pascoe, Henry Domain and Sebastian Letemarki. The retirements behind Kosei Oguma, who did manage to come through to the finish, were Tobias Chisenyi and Louis Cochet, along with Ludovico Busso, Vivek Kanthan, and on the very first lap, we also lost the Brazilian driver Murilo Roca. Very exciting stuff in Superheat A then for the juniors. Perfect start from Bondarev. It wasn't one then, but it was certainly looking pretty good from that moment on. Drummond falling behind Dries van Langendonk initially. And that was obviously what impeded the Scotsman to challenge his way through. Several drivers running a little bit wide on the first lap. But then the conflagration really came at this point. Ready, up and over goes Murilo Roca onto the shoulder of Henry Domain. Incredibly, Domain got going again. But there is the move from Zach Drummond, driving through up on the inside. Very nicely handled to get him into second position there. Zach Drummond definitely following in the wheel tracks of some of his incredible Scottish contemporaries in karting, such as David Coulthard, Alan McNish, Dario Franchitti, and Dexter Patterson, who of course came here and won in the European Championships only a few short years ago. Fabulous challenge up the inside there from Jack Eilif. The American really is taking names out there. This was an unfortunate one as Vivek Kanthan dived for the move on the inside of one of the CRGs, I think that was actually, trying to get through on the inside, and there just wasn't enough room for two cars to negotiate. Kian Fardin made sure there was room every time he made an overtake, but Bondarev gets the job done with a win in Superheat A. He has won every race he has started this weekend, and there's only one more to do. So a great start to proceedings for the junior driver, Oleksandr Bondarev. Down.
Thank you very much, Jake. Yes, down in Parc Fermé with Oleksandr Bondarev, our race winner for the pre-final. And again, well, what a run you've had this weekend. Superheat win, as well as all your qualifying heats. You go maximum points and you go into the final, leading the championship.
Yeah, this race was for sure the hardest so far this weekend. I had Zach behind me the whole race. but I managed to stay in front, and for sure that the final will be even harder because it's 21 laps, a long time, and we'll try to do our best.
Conditions a little bit different today, a lot warmer. How has that been for you so far?
It feels okay, maybe a little bit worse for us, but it still feels quite good, and we are very confident for the final.
Yeah, you've got the fresh set of tyres for the final as well, so you've got that benefit. You starting on the inside row, or are you going to switch it up?
I think I'll stay on the inside because he has a start from the outside. If the guy alongside you gets also a good start, you might go down to P2 into turn 1, and we don't want that. But we'll see. We'll decide with the team.
Well, solid results. Well done so far. Perfect weekend. Hopefully you can maintain that into the final later on today.
Yeah, thank you.
Excellent stuff there for Oleksandr Bondarev. Only 3 more superheats to go. It's the OK group coming up next for Superheat A.
And now it's time to see if Gabriel Gomez can do in the OK senior category what Oleksandr Bondarev has just done in the junior category. Take another 20.